Now, how do I get back to me? Jesus Christ. Man, I don't know how to switch it back over to me. Okay, now, how do I get back to me? Graphics, logo, overlay, video clip. Not a video clip. I'm trying to show a video clip. Me? How do I get that off of here? Hmm. I have no idea. Haven't get to me. How to switch it from there? Good evening and welcome to the Lotus Flower Book Club discussion. I hope that you have enjoyed reading some of the clips from our book and some of the quotes from the author, Alexander Ellie. She has some really good quotes in the book that I really wanted to make sure before I started this book club discussion tonight. I wanted to make sure that you all had an opportunity to actually read some of those quotes and actually write those down. I know that we have over 74 members right now that are participating in the actual book club discussion. And I know that many of you have already posted comments in our dedicated book club discussion page here on Facebook Live. And after I looked at some of your quotes and whatnot, and some of your takeaways from the book, I noticed that many of you have already been reading over most of what has already been shared. And so I'm for that, we're so grateful that you guys have participated to the fullest. And so we want you to know that this year has felt like an endless mental and emotional roller coaster between COVID 19 and between losing jobs, the growing pains of learning skills set to thrive in a recession, losing loved ones, and the ongoing intense fight for social justice. So much has happened over this course of the year to shape us, hopefully, for the better. And with that being said, despite what has been lost this year, we've gained a lot of things, like Alexander Irie's book, After the Rain. The self love book has gained a lot of attention because it helps us to get a balance between compassion and assertiveness, and it's helped us to understand the world and our place in the world and how we are valued by those around us. Through this book, we've learned that self love and healing isn't a linear process, but it's a 3D dimensional experience. And more than anything, it's not a destination, it is a actual journey. Alexander Ellie is the author of multiple books. She hosts a Hey Girl podcast. She's a wellness consultant, an instructor of writing, and retreats and workshops. In her latest book, After the Rain, this explores obstacles, confidence, and abundance. I'm an avid follower of her Instagram page where she regularly posts affirmations. Her words, full of vulnerability, will help fill up your cup. Vulnerability is one of the most challenging emotions to set into, but she does so in an effortless way, especially in this book, After the Rain. Each chapter or lesson unravels difficult situations that she's experienced and the whole truth for the healing process. I say the whole truth because we live in such an artificial world full of people pleasing and very little room to focus on ourselves in a healthy way, not just through financial gain, but material success. So, throughout the book, she explores life challenging scenarios such as self love, change, validation, time, relationships, forgiveness, and comparison throughout the book. I'd like for us to go once again to another one of the quotes that she shared, and that quote is about change. Let's read it. Change. What I did is like, how did I get back to it? I think I went back to, I forgot again, to, I went back to this. Nope, not that. That's not what I did. Back to, uh, back to, well, nope, not background. To, no, not that, not overlay. Back to, Jesus Christ. I can't do this. And they were in the process of searching the grounds. And I advised them, I said, where's the water? And they said, what are you talking about? I said, well, she's in the water. I said, I mean, they got my police troops got get her out. We started a track. The dogs are trained to track ground disturbance. So where you walk, or driven or anything, anywhere that you disturb the ground, I need ground disturbance. Now, back to the discussion. I'm certain that many of you could relate to her journey of dealing with abandonment issues from her parents that she extended to seeking in romantic partners. She took her inner child healing to the next level, writing letters to her younger self to heal parts of her that once were neglected and continued to water those things as she was being triggered throughout her life. Her book has helped us to realize that we are the author of our story. Now, trauma is going to happen eventually, but it's up to us to decide how we're going to let it define our destinies. So, in the book, After the Rain, Gentle Healings for Courage and Self Love, Alexander Ali talks about how that we often time need to realize that healing comes through a needed and necessary space whereby we've got to embrace love and forgiveness in order to get to the place of peace and wholeness. So, not just because we deserve it or people deserve it, it's just because we want to become whole. Now, I love the contents when she talks about her marriage. She is quite raw about what happened in her marriage throughout this book. She talks about that it was flawed, but she also talked about that she and her husband came together and to work on their marriage together, and that they worked on healing their wounds. And when they came together with forgiveness as a unit. So Alexander Ali, she paints a real image of love. Love, she says in the book, is not up to anyone but us. It's not up to someone else to fix us, but it's up to us. She says that you must love yourself enough to show up better for you and for your partner. Alexander Ali in the book also talks about generational habits, which can be broken if you choose to write your story differently. So she says that her mother, when she talked about her in her story, she said her mother didn't love her the way that she was needed to be loved. She said not out of spite, but because she wasn't where she was at in her particular time in her life. That's all that she knew. That's all that she knew to give. So Alexander Ali said that she had to learn to meet her mother right where she was at that particular time in her life. So knowing that in the book it says that she chose to forgive her mother, and she chose to know that her mother was the key to her growing healthy and having a healthy relationship with her. So she talks about that this kind of love causes us to be able to progress in our relationships. She also has a quote in the book that talks about comparison. And she says that comparison is teaching me the importance of compassion. As I continue to unpack my emotional baggage and reflect on my childhood, I'm learning to navigate each emotional entanglement with more grace for myself and those I'm in a relationship with. That was a quote by Alexander Ali. Comparison is indeed the thief of joy. However, it's a process to figure out what fills up my cup because it changes in every season. But in each season of life, self love is evolving, and we have to be open to going where life takes us, even when we don't want to. We can't hold on to jobs, opportunities, and people that reject us. We have to look at this as like a blessing for the next opportunity. We have to choose to stop obsessing over our future and concentrate on how we can appreciate what we have now. So, with every turn in this book, After the Rain, it won my heart. I am so glad that I was able to dig deeper into my own self and also do some more work with my own self love, self care, and learn even more through this book how to comfort my own self, even in some areas that I've found myself falling short in. So, more than anything, Alexander Ali's book, gracefully, kind of forced me to kind of be patient with myself, especially during the seasons of sorrow and healing. Now, there's always lessons to learn from our experiences once we are open to exploring them. There's so much beauty in the struggle. Alexander Ali quotes, learning to soothe our suffering, choosing how to move through pain, that's where the prize is. Now, I want you to know that Alexander Ali's book is very, very, very promising. In the book itself, if you had read through it, you'll find that after each chapter, there's a quote. Like in this pink, dark pink section, there's a quote after each chapter ends. Now, this particular quote says, and that every storm that passes through is clearing the path for something bigger, brighter, and more bountiful. The next quote in that particular chapter about change says, how do you want to change? Think about things in your life that need to shift and require your full attention to do so. Make a list in your journal of the changes that you'd like to make and continue to evolve into your best self. She also talks about self love. There's a chapter here that talks about self love and the importance of loving yourself. I'll read some of that. On page 34, it says, disliking who I was came easily to me as a child. I wore self aversion like a second skin as I mastered the unhealthy habit of picking my entire existence apart without hesitation. As an adult, unpacking those wounds from the past brought a lot of emotion to the surface, some that I'm still not ready to look at in the face and to confront. Navigating how I heal and move through trauma is a daily practice. And though I may not be willing to open up to certain parts and boxes of the pain, I understand that in order to make space for healing, all things must be rooted in love and not fear. Now, that was in chapter number 2 on self love. And then when we turn to the very end of that chapter, it says that I, in a quote, I deserve to see myself in the same warm glow that I see others. My light is abundant, my joy is important. I deserve to take up space. And that was in chapter number 2. And then if you look further down in chapter number 2 on self love, there are questions once again. It says, explore your first memory of loving yourself or struggling with how to. Who taught you to love yourself? What do you need to learn or unlearn? Unfold the layers of your story and find the root of self love. What is the process that takes you through that? Now, if you turn over a bit further in the book, it talks about validation. And I thought that was a very, very, very good chapter. The chapter on validation, chapter number 5, validation. I'm going to read some of that. I learned self validation along my journey, but not without failure and backtracking. Lessons are built through the trial and error of life. As I crumbled time and time again, it became increasingly clear that a person who needs fixing can't mend anyone, themselves included. Sharing myself was what I wanted to do, but I was in pieces. I was in disarray, particularly on the dating front. I remember looking in the mirror at 22 after my first and last failed situationship and thinking, when I have corrected my life and when I have gotten myself together, that's when I'm going to move forward in another situationship. She says here in the book that when she was 22 years old, she became fast friends with a gentleman that only wanted her for sex, food, love, not unconditional love, but love when he wanted it. And that made her feel so empty inside. Why did she feel that way and that she needed this person? Because she felt as though she needed to be validated by that particular relationship. But she said in the book that years down the line, that these things became so blurry, the boundaries were so unclear in the relationship to the point where she really felt just horrible about herself. So there came a time that she said in the book that she lost her ability to actually trust her own voice in situationships, needing to be validated by others. She said in the book, in a quote, that I am learning how to meditate. I am learning how to wash the dishes. I'm learning how to walk to the mailbox. I'm learning how to slice peaches. I'm learning how to teach myself to embrace every moment of life and to pay deeper attention just to the mundane things of life. And when doing so, I'm learning to validate myself. In the back of that chapter, it says, what does validation look like in your life? Is it external or is it internal? Close your eyes and take a moment to find a new way to validate yourself and your purpose. And that was the chapter on validation. So when we think about validation once again, you might think once again about change. I showed you that slide before, but I'm going to show you the slide once again on change. And change talks a lot about validation. So I'm going to show it to you. Now, change, as you can see. Also, when we move over to chapter number 11, and actually she calls it lesson 11, it talks about identity. Identity, I'm reading you a bit of that. Tears poured down my face like an ocean. I can still taste the salt and feel the sting of the words. You, a little nigger, baby, little nigger. And I can still hear the thick Puerto Rico accent and laughter of my elementary school friend Abby's stepdad as he addressed me. There was an awkward silence in my friends as she blinked her eyes, and her mom said nothing as I sobbed. My tears dripped into the stained tan carpet of their living room. Being 8 years old, I wasn't sure why I was crying, but I knew I felt attacked and hurt by the words directed at me. I had heard about the N word, but I'd never been called it before. My little brain was stunned and completely uncertain at how to even process this, what was just said to me. All I could do was cry and feel confused. The man made his way over to me and attempted to make amends by saying, "Nigga is the word for black people." His breath smelled of beer, cigarettes, and sarcasm. I winced. Abby grabbed my hand in comfort. "You're black, ain't you?" he said. "Be black and proud. Say it with me. I'm black, I'm proud." I said it, not knowing at that age that nigger and black pride were not even close to being the same thing. "Stop crying, little nigger," he concluded. I don't remember seeing Addie again after that. I've never forgotten that experience. It shaped me. It was the first time that I truly felt hatred because of the color of my skin. I became hyper aware of others around me that used that derogatory word. I would soon come to know that being black was more than a complex way to move through the world. My skin color, my hair texture, and my facial features all dictated how others saw me and how I saw myself. I didn't celebrate my blackness much in my home, and not like other black children I knew. Some of them celebrated their blackness by wearing their Jamaican clothes, they fixing their food, wearing the African fabrics, smelling of incense in their home, just really celebrating their blackness. But all of this, he says, was foreign to her. So in Addie's house for years, she went not knowing who she was or how to embrace her identity. If you look back, there's a quote in lesson number 11 that says, "All that I am inspires all that I will be." Lesson number 11. Another quote: "Who are you today? And what gives you a sense of belonging?" That was a quote from Alexander Ali. This book, once again, After the Rain, Gentle Healing, for reminders of courage and self love, has been a very intriguing and thought provoking book that we've read this month for our Lotus Flower Book Club. I'm so glad that we were able to have an opportunity to share it together. I want you to take a look at this next video clip. As you can see, we've got to give space for love, compassion, and healing. We've got to give space to be able to dance in the rain after the rain. I want this body of work to give you hope. Let this body of hope wrap you in the stages of comfort, belonging, and a sense of common ground. I hope that these words settle into the soft part of your
Here's to dancing in the rain and believing that triumph is on the other side of supposition. Yours truly, Alex Ellis. I hope that you truly have enjoyed reading this book, After the Rain, by Alexander Ellis. I believe it's just a life-changing opportunity for you, our book club members, and those that have our followers as well.
Our featured book for the month of March will be Wrong Lanes Have Right Turns. Once again, our featured book for the month of March will be Wrong Lanes Have Right Turns, a pardoned man's escape from school to prison pipeline, and What to Do to Dismantle It by Michael Phillips. The book description: the unforgettable true story of a man's escape from the school to prison pipeline, how he reinvented himself as a pastor and an education reformist and an advocate, and what his journey can teach us about turning the collateral damage in our lives to a life of hope. A heart wrenching and triumph story that will change lives. That was by T.D. Jakes. Michael Phillips would never become anything. At least that's what he was told. It seems like everyone was waiting for him just to fall through the cracks. After losing his father, suffering a life altering car accident, and losing his college scholarship, Michael turned to selling drugs to make ends meet. But when his house was raided, he was arrested and thrown into a living nightmare. When it looked like he would be sentenced to spend years behind bars, the judge gave him a choice: to go to a special college program for adjudicated youth or to face the possibility of a 30-year prison sentence. Now, it wasn't hard for him to pick. From that choice, a mission was born to help change the system that shuffles too many young black men like Michael from school to prison. Today, Michael is the pastor of a thriving church, a local leader in Baltimore, and a member of the Maryland State Board of Education. He discovered that education was the path to becoming who he was created to be. So make sure that you purchase your book early. Make sure that you purchase your book, our next book for the month of March. Wrong Lanes Have Right Turns, a pardoned man's escape from the prison to school pipeline, and What Can We Do to Dismantle It by Michael Phillips. That book is available on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. I'm looking forward to this dynamic reading discussion with you. Get your book early. Go ahead and start reading it early, and go ahead and continue to type in the chat in our dedicated Lotus Flower Book Club page on Facebook, and be ready for our book club discussion on the third Thursday in March at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining me this evening for the Lotus Flower Book Club discussion as we discuss After the Rain, Gentle Reminders for Healing, Courage, and Self-Love by Alexander Ali. Thank you. Happy reading and happy blooming.